I started having panic attacks. I did not feel comfortable. I didn't want to go to Hollywood. I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to be a star, certainly.
Goldie Hawn. For decades, her infectious laugh and bubbly charm made her Hollywood's undisputed golden girl. She was the star everyone loved, the ray of sunshine who could light up any movie set. But behind that radiant smile lies a story she's kept hidden for years. A quiet blacklist of powerful men whose behavior was so toxic, she vowed to never work with them again. At 79, the Hollywood icon is finally pulling back the curtain on the 6 legendary actors who made her life miserable. We're talking about on-set tyrants, manipulative power players, and comedic geniuses who were anything but funny when the cameras stopped rolling. From diva behavior and cruel remarks to outright career sabotage, these stories will change the way you see some of Hollywood's biggest names forever. What did these men do that was so unforgivable? How did one of Hollywood's most beloved stars navigate a world of humiliation and disrespect while keeping her famous smile intact? And which actor's actions were so damaging that she walked away from a career-defining role just to escape him? Today, we're revealing the shocking truth. Before we dive into the first name on Goldie's secret list, make sure you've subscribed and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss a single detail. When the film Foul Play debuted in 1978, it seemed like a comedic dream come true. Audiences fell in love with the unlikely pairing of the charming Goldie Hawn and the quick-witted Chevy Chase. Their on-screen chemistry was electric, a perfect mix of innocent charm and sly humor that had fans begging for more. But while the laughs poured from the screen, what was happening behind the scenes was anything but a comedy. It was a storm of ego, tension, and emotional turmoil centered almost entirely on Chevy Chase. Fresh off his meteoric rise on Saturday Night Live, Chase arrived on set with an ego that was out of control. Crew members described him as volatile and condescending, refusing to stick to the script and throwing out entire scenes if they didn't amuse him. He wasn't just difficult. He was reportedly cruel, barking at lighting techs and treating production assistants like personal servants. For someone like Goldie, known for her professionalism and grace, the strain was immense. She did her best to diffuse his arrogance with kindness, but even she had a breaking point. The dynamic between the two stars grew increasingly toxic. Chase frequently interrupted Goldie during her takes, sneered at her lines, and made disparaging remarks about her talent. He wasn't trying to make the film better. He was sabotaging it to keep the spotlight on himself. A stylist on set overheard Goldie whisper the devastating truth. He's not funny when the cameras stop rolling. He's just cruel. By the final weeks of filming, their relationship had deteriorated into silence. So when studios came calling about a sequel, Goldie gave one simple answer: never again. The experience with Chase was a brutal lesson in dealing with on-set tyrants. But his chaotic cruelty was just one kind of Hollywood nightmare. What happened next would come from another comedic genius, whose form of attack was much quieter, sharper, and far more personal. By the late 1980s, Goldie Hawn was a powerhouse. So when a new comedy landed on her desk with Bill Murray attached as a co-star, it seemed like a no-brainer. On paper, it was a dream team, America's sweetheart and comedy's unpredictable genius. But what looked like lightning in a bottle quickly turned into a storm she never wanted to weather again. The trouble began at the very first table read. Murray strolled in over an hour late, offered no apology, and immediately began hijacking the material. He wasn't just improvising. He was openly mocking the dialogue, rewriting key scenes on the fly and rolling his eyes during Goldie's lines. The writers sat in frozen disbelief as he treated their work like a sandbox for his ego. Goldie, ever the professional, tried to play along, but this wasn't creative collaboration. It felt like sabotage. Then came the moment that ended everything. During an emotional scene, Murray turned to her with his familiar deadpan smirk and said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Why don't you try acting like you've done drama before?" The room filled with uncomfortable laughter, but Goldie didn't flinch. She calmly closed her script, stood up, and walked out of the room. No fireworks, no dramatic speech, just quiet dignity. The next day, her representatives called the producers with a clear message. Goldie was out. She didn't just shut the door on the project. She decided to remove that kind of chaos from her life entirely. She began choosing peace over projects with difficult men, a decision that would redefine her career. This experience with Murray's intellectual cruelty was a painful lesson. But the next man on her secret list wouldn't attack her in a room full of people. His methods were far more insidious, a quiet campaign of revenge waged in the shadows after she wounded his pride. If Chevy Chase earned his spot through cruelty and Bill Murray through sabotage, the next man on Goldie's list did it with something far more calculated. Charm turned into a weapon. In the 1970s, Warren Beatty was Hollywood royalty, a man famous not only for his films but for the wake of whispered scandals he left behind. He didn't just date women. He pursued them like prizes in a private game of seduction. And at the height of her fame, Goldie Hawn became his next target. He invited her to lunches and dinners, showering her with disarming smiles and compliments. But Goldie, always sharp behind her bubbly exterior, saw it all for what it was. She knew Beatty's history, the famous women who had fallen under his spell, only to be reduced to anecdotes in his larger-than-life story. She didn't want to be a chapter in his book, so she turned him down. Politely, consistently, and without drama. But Beatty wasn't used to hearing no, and his charm began to crack. Soon after, a quiet, insidious campaign began. Whispers started to circulate that Goldie was difficult or flaky. Directors started to hesitate. Scripts that were once heading her way suddenly vanished. It wasn't a public attack, but a slow leak. The kind that drained opportunity without leaving fingerprints. Industry insiders called it Hollywood Sabotage 101, a powerful man punishing a woman's rejection with quiet, career-damaging suggestions in the right rooms. Goldie never spoke of it publicly, but she knew exactly what was happening. She refused to give him the satisfaction of a fight, instead focusing on her work and outlasting his bruised ego. But this chilling lesson in offset power plays was just another piece of the puzzle. The next challenge she faced would be even more direct, a brutal, personal assault on her talent in a single audition that would change how she saw the industry forever. The next man on Goldie's path didn't try to charm her or sabotage her from afar. He tried to break her. In a moment that would redefine her career, she found herself in a cold casting room, auditioning for a serious drama that was meant to be her pivot away from comedy. She was ready to prove her depth, and the project, with the legendary Dustin Hoffman attached, was her golden ticket. On paper, it was a dramatic masterclass in the making. In reality, it was a trap. From the moment the audition began, Hoffman's energy was off. Just a few lines into the scene, he abruptly halted everything. With a disarming lack of grace, he turned to the producers, smirked, and twisted the knife. "She's still playing it like a sitcom," he announced. It wasn't a critique. It was a calculated jab meant to humiliate. The room filled with nervous, complicit laughter. In that instant, Goldie understood the game. This wasn't about art. It was an exercise in dominance, and she was the target. What should have been a collaboration had turned into a public autopsy. But Goldie didn't cry or storm out. She locked in, finished the scene with her voice steady and her hands unshaken, and walked out of that room with absolute certainty. The next morning, she dropped out of the project. Her message to her agent became a legendary line in her inner circle. "I won't fight to be taken seriously by men who have already decided I'm a punchline." It wasn't method acting. It was method abuse, and she refused to let it bite. This encounter wasn't about losing a role. It was about refusing to be shrunk by another man's toxic ego. But the fight to be taken seriously wasn't just confined to sets and audition rooms. The next assault would come in public, from an actor who dismissed not just her talent, but the very cause she was fighting for. If Dustin Hoffman's attack was a private assassination of her craft, Sean Penn's was a public execution of her purpose. This didn't happen on a set, but at a star-studded charity gala for mental health, a cause deeply personal to Goldie. She was there to speak from the heart, but a few tables oversat Sean Penn, and his icy contempt was about to poison the entire evening. As Goldie walked to the podium, guests noticed his performative impatience. He sighed loudly and rolled his eyes, making it clear he felt he was above it all. Before she even spoke, he muttered just loud enough to be heard, "Another celebrity wellness sermon." The air grew thick with tension. Still, Goldie delivered her sincere speech about the importance of kindness. When she finished to polite applause, a single voice rose above the noise, loud and dripping with condescension. It was Penn. "She should stick to giggling," he declared. A few people gasped. Most pretended not to hear. Goldie paused for only a second. Then, in a move of pure grace, she smiled, raised her glass, and left the event. In the car ride home, something in her broke. According to friends, she wasn't just hurt. She was tired. "My whole career," she reportedly said, "and I'm still reduced to giggles by men who don't know what the hell I stand for." This wasn't just a rude comment. It was a clash of worldviews. Penn, with his brooding persona, had dismissed her life's advocacy as trivial. The incident revealed a painful truth that still resonates today. Some men will always see a woman's optimism as a weakness. Penn's cynical attack was a stark reminder of the disrespect she still faced. But his brand of modern dismissal was just one side of the coin. The final man on her list represented something much older and more insidious, and deep-rooted sexism that didn't need one explosive moment to do its damage. The final name on Goldie's quiet blacklist wasn't a chaotic rebel or a cynical bully. He was a legend, the gold standard of old Hollywood masculinity, Kirk Douglas. But for Goldie, his reverence was a constant, suffocating reminder of an era that refused to see her as anything more than decoration. With Douglas, there wasn't one explosive fight. It was worse. It was a death by 1,000 cuts, a slow, condescending dismissal that spanned decades. At countless industry events, he'd greet her with over-the-top hand kisses and theatrical winks. While others saw it as harmless, old-school charm, Goldie saw the truth beneath it. "He talks to me like I'm still the blonde in a bikini," she once told a confidant, "and I've won an Oscar." From our global perspective today in 2025, whether you're in Hollywood or watching from halfway across the world, this behavior is a clear example of systemic sexism. It was a legacy of dismissing a woman's intellect in favor of her smile, no matter how heavy her resume was. He would interrupt her on panels and skim over her insights on filmmaking. To him, she was always the effervescent Goldie, never an equal builder of the industry. The breaking point was quiet but final. During a meeting for a film she was co-producing, Douglas cut in on her presentation with a patronizing quip. The room laughed. Goldie didn't. She calmly closed her notebook and walked out. No fireworks, just finality. She refused to let his dismissive attitude define her story. Goldie never tried to cancel him. She simply outlasted him and the system he represented. Kirk Douglas was a mirror reflecting a version of Hollywood she was determined to survive. For every dismissive chuckle, she gave herself distance, reclaiming her narrative one silent act at a time. Her story isn't just about the men who wronged her. It's about the unshakable strength she found in rising above them all. When Goldie Hawn looked back at these 6 encounters, it became impossible to ignore the thread running through all of them. Different personalities, different decades, different settings, but the same core behavior. They were men who, in one way or another, diminished her. Sometimes it was wrapped in old-fashioned charm, Like Kirk Douglas' hand kisses and winks that masked a refusal to take her ideas seriously. Other times, it came as calculated punishment, like Warren Beatty's quiet whispers that slowed her career after she said no. It could be chaotic ego, like Chevy Chase and Bill Murray, undermining her on set to keep the spotlight on themselves. Or it could be open disdain, like Sean Penn's gala insult. And in the coldest form, it was Dustin Hoffman's surgical humiliation in an audition room. No matter the approach, the message was always the same. They saw her as the smile, the laugh, the decoration, not the mind, the vision, or the authority. And it wasn't just about her. To Goldie, these moments reflected a deeper truth about Hollywood itself, an industry that had been built on women's beauty and charm, while quietly erasing their intellect and influence. But what set her apart wasn't just her ability to survive it. It was how she chose to respond. Because while many would have fought publicly or waged their own campaigns, Goldie's strategy was quieter and far more lasting. Goldie Hawn never needed a headline feud to make her point. She didn't trade barbs in interviews, leak gossip to the press, or try to cancel anyone. Instead, her revenge was subtle, deliberate, and incredibly effective. She removed herself entirely from their world. If a script came in and the name of a past offender was attached, she passed. If a panel, gala, or charity event meant sharing a stage with them, she declined. If they approached her years later with a smile as if nothing had happened, she matched it with icy grace, turned, and walked away. Her goal wasn't to humiliate them back. It was to reclaim her peace. By choosing who she worked with and where she showed up, she quietly starved their power over her. Over time, while some of these men's reputations became tangled in gossip, ego, or irrelevance, Goldie's image stayed intact, professional, respected, and entirely on her own terms. Friends say this quiet strength is what defined her career in the years that followed. She no longer chased roles that demanded she be the straight woman to a male chaos machine. She invested in projects where her voice mattered and where her contributions weren't, minimized to a smile in the background. Her greatest act of resistance? Outlasting them. She proved that you could walk away from toxic circles without losing your career. And sometimes, by doing so, you make your career stronger. And when she looked back, it wasn't the drama she remembered. It was the dignity she kept while walking out the door. The 6 men who made up Goldie Hawn's secret blacklist. From the on-set tyranny of Chevy Chase and the method abuse of Dustin Hoffman to the quiet sabotage of Warren Beatty, Goldie faced every kind of toxic behavior Hollywood could throw at her. Each man presented a different challenge: cruelty, ego, manipulation, and condescension. But they all made the same mistake. They underestimated her resilience. Her story isn't really about the actors who tried to diminish her. It's about a woman who refused to be broken. She didn't fight back with loud public feuds or scathing interviews. She fought by outlasting them, by choosing her peace, and by building a legacy so radiant that their shadows couldn't touch it. In the end, Goldie Hawn's greatest performance was never in a movie. It was in the quiet, unshakable dignity she carried through a lifetime in a difficult industry. What do you think about these untold stories? Do you believe Goldie handled these situations the right way? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to leave a like, share it with a friend, and subscribe to the channel for more shocking Hollywood histories. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.